So, when you look at Tory economic doctrine, there has been always one central focus, and that central focus has always been on the city of London. That London is all, that it's the big economic driver for the rest of the UK, much to, well, the detriment to the rest of the country. As far as the Tories have always been concerned, if it's not in London, they don't really care about it. And you've seen this replicated throughout many cities in the UK that are crying out for investment. Sheffield, prime example. If it actually had like some serious investment to it, it could become a major economic power hub of the North. Same for Leeds as well. Many people don't actually realize it, but one of the reasons why Leeds is as big as it is now is that it managed to attract a lot of financial banks to Leeds to be the northern hub of the banking in sort of the UK. And now outside London, Leeds is actually, I think, the second, if not third, biggest place for financial services in the UK. Big reason why you go to Leeds city centre, and in many parts of it, you could think maybe you were in London. Many parts of it with the increased building of skyscrapers, big floored buildings, because that's what the banks have needed, big multi-floor buildings to have all their workers in. Pandemics of course changed big things in a lot of Leeds, has a lot, but again, anyone can think of pick a city in the UK crying out for investment. They're all there. And one of the big things that we did talk about during the referendum was, if Brexit happens, what then happens to the city of London? The big financial services hub. Bear in mind, remember, 80% of the UK economy is based on services. Most of those services, guess what? Based in London. Meaning that if you have a disaster of something like Brexit, which will mean the leaving of hundreds of thousands of jobs, well, guess what? Means London, the big driver or the big driver of the UK economy, then gets damaged. What does this mean to the rest of the UK? Kind of a big problem where we've had governments for years that have just focused on the city of London, that being the only sort of driver of the UK economy to the detriment of everywhere else, because anything that damages London, well, inevitably elsewhere gets damaged. So we're going to have a look at this today because the Lord Mayor of London, of the square mile, of the in charge of like the city's financial district, has come out and said Brexit's been a disaster. It has destroyed thousands of jobs that have now left the UK. And of course, guess what? This will once again open the conversation about Brexit, because we have now seen what the economic disaster has been for the city. Something, of course, which many of the Brexiteers said, will never happen. But as we've seen over the past couple of years, guess what? That has indeed happened. So on now into this. But before we do get on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the donation link on Buy Me Coffee, we can well Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, we'll see you. Thank you all to the people who do help, of course, the channel that way. So let's crack on then into this. So over we go to Euro News, covering this with the title of "The UK Decision to Leave the EU a Disaster, Costing Thousands of Jobs." So the Lord Mayor of the City of London, Michael Mainelli, who acts now as an ambassador to the city's financial district, says that the square mile has lost thousands of jobs because of Brexit. So the Lord Mayor of London's economically influential financial district has now called the UK's decision to leave the European Union a disaster that has now led to the loss of tens of thousands of jobs. And here's the thing, once again, you are seeing the economic disaster of this. People saying how bad, Brexit has been. You cannot keep ignoring how bad Brexit has been. And I just want to point out, because I was saying this prior to the election, that when you get rid of a lot of these, Brexit headbangers, then you can have more conversations about Brexit and the damage Brexit has done to the UK. And guess what? In just such a short time, we have actually had people stand up, say Brexit. I know, and no one's, booed or anything like that. An actual proper conversation has been had. And those conversations will now continue. So it is inevitable that we will see more of these types of things be talked about, I think, a lot more often. Then these will become talked about more as news, as people, we're already seeing the polls that people very much regret Brexit already, and would certainly not happen if the vote were to happen today. But there you go. So Professor Michael Mellin, who obviously represents the Square Mile, one of the world's leading financial centres, this includes the Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, the international banks, law firms, and insurance companies, says that the Brexit decision has now cost the city approximately 40,000 jobs. So speaking to Reuters, Mellin, the 659th Lord Mayor, laid bare the very seismic impact of the UK's decision to break away from one of the world's most powerful trading blocs, saying, "We had over 250,000 workers in 2016. My estimates is now that we are now just short 40,000. These are now about 615,000 jobs now in the city that were buoyed by the expansion of the insurance and data industries," Michael said. He said the Square Mile had generally been very pro-EU in the Brexit debate 8 years ago, saying the city voted 70-30 to remain. We did not want it. His comments will have now reunite the debate around the true impact of Brexit has had on Britain's money-spinning financial services sector. Analysis by the UK's own budget of responsibility, the independent body providing forecasts on the UK's economy, public finances, reported back in May of 2024 that Brexit will reduce the UK's long-term productivity by 4% compared to remaining in the EU. The body also found that imports and exports will be around 50% lower in the long run than the now much vaunted new trade deals with non-EU companies will have not material any impact on it will be very gradual. The OBR report said this is because the deals concluded to date either replicate or roll over deals the UK had already been benefited from as an EU member state, so they do not have any material impact on our forecasts. Yeah, we've known this for a while. Shock horror, Brexit again, bad idea. Who could have guessed? Yeah, ultimately, these conversations will keep on going. And, as we've said many, many times before, Brexit is not over. As to West Streeting saying, "Oh, people have moved on from Brexit." No, like the reality, the economic reality of Brexit being there, being the elephant in the room that you have to talk about, you have to confront, is the problem. This is why, Keir Starmer is pursuing a reset with the EU to talk with them, to sort of see if there's any way you can lessen those, Brexit impacts. But as we've always said, the only real way to get rid of those Brexit impacts is to rejoin the EU, rejoin the single market, rejoin the customs union. It is eminently doable. But you've got to have the political will to do that. And I think over the next couple of years, you will see, I think, politicians now openly maybe actually start to publicly say that, to have that discussion, to say that. It is very likely with Kimi Badnoch now, the darling of the right, taking over the Conservative Party and probably wanting to sort of leave the European Court of Human Rights. It will be very likely that maybe the One Nationers, being very, pro-EU, may turn around and say, well, actually, we do not want this. This is exactly the same type of discussion that they were having about Brexit. In fact, actually, Brexit was being a terrible idea. And oh boy, would that open a can of worms if they all of a sudden, a pro-EU movement were to happen within the Brexit, within the Conservative Party. That would be very interesting. How Kimi Badnoch might try to deal with that. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.